The first thing Aaron Vale felt was the cold. It was not a sharp, painful cold like winter on Earth. It was the kind of cold that slid under the skin, quiet and careful, as if the air itself wanted to remind him that this was not home. The light above him was bright and white, to clean, almost like it came from no real source at all. He opened his eyes slowly. The ceiling was curved like the inside of a shell, glowing softly. There was no sound except a low hum, steady, patient, almost like the heartbeat of a giant machine. He tried to move, but something stopped him. His arms were resting on smooth metal. His chest rose and fell, but bands of thin, shining material held his wrists and ankles in place. Aaron exhaled slowly. He was not afraid, not yet. He had trained for alien contact missions for years, but this was not what the plan had said. There was supposed to be a delegation, a welcome team, maybe a speech. Not a bright white room. Not restraints. He tilted his head slightly to the left. A glass wall stood only a few meters away. Behind it were shapes tall, thin, almost like shadows carved from mist. Then one stepped forward. She was unlike anything he had ever seen. The alien woman, if woman was even the right word, moved with calm grace. Her body was slender, her skin a pale silver blue that almost glowed in the light. Her eyes were large, almost too large for her face, with a deep shimmer that made them look like tiny galaxies. There was no visible mouth, yet Aaron could hear a soft voice in his mind. It was calm, almost curious. Human. Aaron blinked. The voice had no sound. It was inside his head. A translator? No, more like telepathy. He tried to speak, but his throat was dry. He swallowed hard. "Where am I?" he asked. For a moment, the alien tilted her head to the side like a scientist observing a strange new insect. Then the voice came again. "You are safe. You are in observation." Observation. The word made something tighten in Aaron's chest. He knew that word too well. It was what humanity had used for centuries when they caught something they did not understand. Animals, microbes, planets. Now he was the one being observed. Another figure joined her. This one wore a transparent layer over its body that looked like liquid glass. Instruments floated around them, controlled by invisible hands. A silver rod hovered above Aaron's arm. The air around it shimmered faintly. The woman leaned closer. Her eyes reflected every detail of his face like she was memorizing him. Aaron suddenly felt very human, very fragile. "Please remove the restraints," he said calmly. "I am an ambassador. My people came here to talk." She blinked slowly. "You move too much. We must understand the pattern of your body." "Pattern?" he asked. "Yes, it behaves in ways that are not logical." Aaron let out a short breath that was almost a laugh. "Yeah," he whispered, "that's humans for you." She didn't react to the joke. Instead, she stepped closer, placing a thin, glowing panel near his chest. It emitted soft pulses of light. The band around his wrist adjusted, not hurting him, but holding firm. He watched her expression carefully. It wasn't cruel. It wasn't cold either. It was curious. The way a child might look at a firefly, or a scientist might look through a microscope. She was not trying to hurt him, she simply wanted to understand. "Do you have a name?" Aaron asked. The alien paused. Her head tilted again. "Name? Yes, I am Vesha." "Vesha," he repeated softly. "Nice to meet you." She blinked, and Aaron thought he saw something change in her glowing eyes. A flicker like a question. "Why do you speak to me?" she asked. Aaron raised an eyebrow. "Because you're the only one here. Other species do not speak. They wait." "Well," Aaron said with a small grin, "humans don't like waiting." The panel on his chest made a soft sound. Vesha looked at the display. Her head moved closer, examining the pulse line that jumped and curved with each heartbeat. She raised a thin finger and traced the shape of the line in the air. "Your heart changes speed," she said slowly. "It increases when you look at me." "Why does it do that?" Aaron almost laughed again. It wasn't the question itself, it was how innocent it sounded. She wasn't mocking him. She was genuinely confused. Because I'm a little nervous, he admitted. Where I'm from, being strapped to a table isn't exactly relaxing. She blinked, considering this. You are alive. You are not in danger. Why nervous? Aaron shrugged lightly. Sometimes it's not about danger. It's just how we are. The lights in the room shifted slightly. A low tone echoed through the chamber like a signal. Another alien voice entered his mind, not Vishah's this time. It was lower, heavier. Begin level 2. The floating instruments rearranged themselves. Vesha turned back to Aaron. Do not resist. This is safe. Not resisting, he said quietly. But his heart rate jumped again. She looked at the panel, then back at him. It increases again, she said softly. Why? Because I'm not a machine, he said. I feel things. For the first time, something like a small ripple moved through Vesha's expression. She stepped back as if the idea itself was unfamiliar. Her kind were logical beings. To them, fear and emotion were wasted energy. To her, a rising heartbeat meant malfunction. But Aaron wasn't malfunctioning. He was just human. Another set of panels appeared above him, projecting images of his body bones, muscles. Veins all shone in clear, glowing lines. Vesha moved between the images like a painter inspecting a masterpiece she didn't understand. She traced the lines of his ribcage, the way his lungs expanded. She stared at the tiny flicker of his heartbeat on the display. You have redundant systems, she whispered to herself. 2 lungs. 1 heart. Fluid constantly moving. Heat rising and falling. It's called being alive. Aaron said softly. She moved closer again, closer than before. This time, her glowing eyes focused not on the machines, but on him. We have studied many species, she said. They live because the system works. You live because the system tries. Aaron's lips parted a little. That was strangely poetic. He didn't expect poetry from an alien scientist. What do you mean? He asked. Your structure is unstable, weak. It reacts to environment constantly. But instead of failing, it fights. That's right, he said with a small smile. That's what humans do. The soft hum of the room grew louder. One of the other aliens approached, tapping a control on its floating panel. A sudden rush of cool air filled the space around Aaron. The light dimmed slightly, shifting to a faint blue. It felt colder. Much colder. Vesh's gaze snapped to the monitors. His heartbeat rose. His breathing quickened. She leaned closer, fascinated. Again, she whispered, Why does it do that? Because I'm cold, Aaron said. His teeth almost chattered, but he forced a steady breath. It's normal. She looked back at the panel, then at him. Cold is just temperature. Why does it make your inside? Move, Aaron chuckled softly. Because that's how my body keeps me alive. For the first time, she did not immediately respond. Her long fingers hovered above the glowing control panel. She was trying to understand something deeper than biology. Something her people probably didn't experience at all. Another voice echoed in their minds. Proceed with emotional response test. Aaron felt something change in the air. A low hum surrounded the table. Soft lights appeared above him, creating the illusion of a star field, dozens of tiny points of light. Like the night sky on Earth, the sight hit him harder than he expected. His chest tightened. A lump formed in his throat. He hadn't seen a real sky in months. Vesha's eyes widened slightly. The lines on the monitor spiked. Your body reacts, she whispered again. But nothing touched you. No heat, no cold. Why? Aaron's voice was soft now. Because that looks like home. She turned her head slowly toward the projection. Her kind did not have home the way humans did. They traveled in great fleets, living their lives between stars, never tied to one world. The concept of missing a place was foreign to her. She moved closer again. It's close enough that he could see faint silver veins glowing beneath her translucent skin. Home, she repeated slowly. A location. Yet it changes your body more than temperature or force. Yes, Aaron said quietly, because it's not just a place. It's a feeling. Asha fell silent. For the first time, she didn't ask another question. She simply stared at the display, then at Aaron, as if trying to fit a shape into a puzzle that didn't exist. The other alien spoke again, a deep, emotionless voice. Mark anomaly. Continue tests. But Vesha didn't respond right away. She looked at Aaron with that same curious gaze, only softer now. She raised her hand and turned off the cold air. Slowly, the temperature returned to normal. Aaron let out a breath of relief. She stepped even closer. So close that he could hear a faint pulse from her body steady, even like a machine's hum. She studied his face carefully. His eyes. The small tremble in his fingers. The heat rising from his skin. Then, in a soft whisper that was almost like a secret between two strangers in the dark, she asked, "Why does it do that?" Aaron met her glowing gaze and smiled faintly. Because that's what makes us human. For the first time, something shifted in her expression. A flicker not of logic, but of wonder. And in that cold, bright room, surrounded by silent machines and alien eyes, Aaron Vale stopped feeling like a specimen. He started feeling like a teach. Aaron Vale did not sleep that night. The lights in the observation room never turned off. They just softened from bright white to a dim, soft blue. He lay on the same smooth table, though the restraints had loosened slightly since the earlier tests. He could move his fingers now, shift his head, breathe a little deeper, but even if the room had been comfortable, he wouldn't have slept. His mind was too loud. Every sound in the room echoed inside his skull, the soft hum of machines, the whisper of distant air vents, the tiny beeps of alien monitors. And then there was. She had not left. The other scientists had gone silent shapes fading into the glass hallways. But Vesha had stayed. She sat behind the clear wall, still as a statue, watching the data streams float around her like ribbons of light. She didn't speak, but Aaron could feel her attention on him. She wasn't just studying his body anymore. She was studying him. He turned his head slightly. The movement soft against the table. "You're still here," he said. Her luminous eyes turned toward him. The same soft, calm voice echoed in his head. "Yes, I am not finished." He raised an eyebrow. "Do you ever sleep?" She blinked slowly, like she had to think about the word. "Our bodies do not require it as yours does. We rest, but not as you do. We." Pause. Aaron chuckled lightly. "Figures." She tilted her head. "Figures. It means I expected that." She didn't reply, but he thought he saw her eyes flicker in a way that almost looked like amusement, though it might have just been the light. After a long silence, she stood. Her movement was smooth and soundless, like water flowing through air. She passed through a sliding door made of transparent material, and soon she stood only a meter away from him. No glass between them now. Aaron's breath caught a little. Not because he was afraid, but because it was the first time since his capture that someone stood near him without a wall. She was closer than before. "Why are you still here?" he asked softly. She looked at him, then at the monitors. "Because you are different," he gave a half smile. "Humans usually are." She walked around the table slowly, hands folded behind her back. Her eyes never left him. "I have studied thousands of species. When exposed to cold, they slow down. When isolated, they become still. When afraid, they either fight or freeze. You." She paused. "You talk." Aaron let out a small laugh. "Yeah, talking is kind of our thing." "Why?" she asked, turning to face him fully now. "Why speak when there is no help?" "Because silence is worse," he said simply. "And sometimes talking is how we fight fear." The room fell quiet again. But it wasn't the same kind of silence as before. It was softer, closer, like two people breathing the same air. Vesha slowly reached toward the panel at the side of the table. The restraints around his wrists dissolved into tiny lights and vanished. For the first time since arriving here, Aaron could sit up. He did it slowly, his muscles stiff. Vesha didn't stop him. "You trust me?" he asked. "No," she said calmly. "But I want to understand you. For that, you must move freely." He chuckled softly. "That's fair. Aaron sat with his feet hanging off the table. His hands rubbed together, trying to warm themselves. Vesha stood a few steps away, watching closely. Every movement he made seemed to interest her. She raised a hand, and a floating orb of light appeared between them. The air shimmered around it. "This is a stress field," she explained. "It simulates danger. We use it to study how bodies respond. Most creatures panic." "Let me guess," Aaron said. "You want to see what a human does?" She didn't answer. She just activated it. The orb pulsed softly. The hum in the room deepened. It wasn't dangerous, but something about it made the air heavier. Aaron's heartbeat sped up automatically, and he felt the tiny hairs on his arms rise. His instincts whispered, "Move, protect, run." But he didn't move. He took a slow breath. "This feels weird." "Explain," Vesha said immediately, her eyes bright with interest. "It's like danger is close, but I don't know where it is. So my body's just on edge." He tapped his chest lightly. "This heart racing, that's part of the deal." He stepped closer, the light from the orb reflecting in her silver blue skin. "Most species flee. Some collapse. You remain." Aaron met her gaze. "Because running doesn't help if you don't know where to run." She tilted her head again. "You are afraid." "Yeah, but you smile." He gave a small grin. "That's kind of a human thing, too." "Why?" He thought for a moment. "Because if fear owns you, it wins. Smiling makes it feel smaller." Vesha stared at him for a long moment. Then, without warning, she stepped into the stress field with him. The shimmer wrapped around them both like a thin fog. Her body did not react at all, no faster breathing, no change in pulse. She was calm. Pure logic. She turned her glowing eyes to him. "I feel nothing," she said. "I know," he replied softly. "That's what makes us different." The hum faded. The orb dissolved. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Vesha looked almost unsettled. Not by fear, she didn't have that, but by the fact that something in him existed that she could not understand with science. She moved to a control panel on the wall. A projection appeared. A map of her world, glowing lines of floating stations and ships. "Your species is young," she said. "You are not advanced like us. Your bodies are weak, but—" She hesitated, something unusual for her kind. "You resist." "That's right," Aaron said. "We always have." She turned her gaze toward him again. "Why?" "Because giving up isn't in our nature," he said simply. The door at the far end of the room opened. Another alien entered, taller, broader. His silver blue skin gleamed brighter, and his voice was heavier when it filled Aaron's mind. "Vesha, the specimen is ready for further levels." Specimen. The word made Aaron's stomach tighten. He hated it, but Vesha's head turned sharply toward the other alien. "No, not yet. The council expects results." "He's not a specimen," she said. Aaron's breath caught. She hadn't said that before. The other aliens stared at her in silence. Then he left without a word, the door sliding shut behind him. The hum of the room returned. Aaron exhaled slowly. "You didn't have to do that," he said softly. "I did," she replied. "You are. Interesting." "Thanks," he said with a dry laugh. "That's the nicest thing anyone said to me today." She didn't smile. She just kept watching him with those deep, star-like eyes. "Your heartbeat changed again," she whispered. "Why?" "Because someone stood up for me," Aaron said quietly. "That's a rare thing here." Something flickered again in her gaze. She walked closer, standing only a step away from him now. She lifted a hand, slowly, not threatening. Leanne hovered it near his chest. She wasn't touching him, just feeling the heat radiating from his body. "Warm," she whispered. "Yeah," Aaron said softly. "We run hot." "Why?" "Because warmth means we're alive." She pulled her hand back slowly, like someone touching something fragile for the first time. Then, with quiet curiosity, she asked, "Do you always keep going? Even when you are afraid?" Aaron thought of Earth, of the cities rebuilt after disasters, of the first explorers who touched unknown stars, of soldiers, doctors, builders, dreamers, people who had nothing but hope and still kept moving forward. Yes, he said. We do. Vesha didn't reply right away. She walked back toward the wall, her fingers trailing through the air as if drawing invisible lines. My people do not understand this, she said softly. We do not fear. We do not hope. We calculate. We survive because the numbers say we should, but you survive because you choose to. Aaron's smile softened. That's what makes us human. A soft sound filled the room, like distant bells. It was a signal of some kind. Vesha looked up sharply. The council wants to see the results, she said. I'm guessing that's bad news for me. Aaron said lightly, perhaps she admitted, but they will not understand you as I do. She raised her hand toward the ceiling. The restraints reappeared, but she didn't activate them. Instead, she lowered them again. She was making a choice, and it wasn't what her people expected. Aaron watched her closely. She was still logical, still cold in some ways, but something inside her was changing. Curiosity had grown roots. She turned back to him. I want to ask you something, she said. Go ahead. If you could escape this place, she asked softly, would you? Aaron met her gaze. For a long moment, neither moved. Then he said, yes, I would. Not because I hate your people, but because freedom is part of who we are. Her eyes flickered again. Slowly, she nodded. I thought so. The lights around the room dimmed again, signaling the end of the observation cycle. But this time, it didn't feel like a cage. It felt like the calm before something larger. As she turned to leave, she paused at the door. When I look at you, she whispered, your body changes. Your heart moves. Your temperature rises. Your eyes focus. Why? Aaron smiled. Because I'm alive, Vesha, and living things aren't just numbers. For a second, she didn't move. Then she stepped through the door, leaving him alone with the soft hum of the room. But the air felt different now. Lighter. Aaron lay back on the table, staring at the glowing ceiling. He didn't know what tomorrow would bring. But for the first time since he arrived, he wasn't just a prisoner. He was something more. He was a question Vesha couldn't answer. And questions Aaron knew. He next morning, or whatever passed for morning. In this strange placer and veil sat quietly on the edge of the metal table. The lights in the room glowed soft white, calm and steady. The air hummed with a low rhythm like a machine breathing. Everything looked the same. But something in the room felt different. It wasn't the temperature. It wasn't the sound, it was Visa. She was standing closer than usual. Not behind glass this time. Her silver-blue skin shimmered softly in the light. Her wide, luminous eyes no longer looked at him like he was just a strange creature on a table. Now she looked at him like he was. Something she needed to understand. Today, her soft, calm voice filled his mind. The council will observe you. Aaron tilted his head. The council. She nodded slowly. The highest of our kind. They will decide what happens next. He crossed his arms loosely. Let me guess. More tests. Yes, she said. But not just tests. They want to know why you react the way you do. They want to know why you fight. Why you hope. Aaron chuckled softly. Good luck explaining that. Vesha didn't smile. Her people didn't really smile. But her eyes softened, and that was enough. She pressed her hand to a panel, and the walls of the observation room dissolved into transparent glass. Beyond the barrier stretched a massive hall, glowing silver and white. Giant, floating seats circled above them like stars around a planet. Figures appeared, tall, elegant, glowing softly like Vesha, but older. Their eyes brighter and colder. The council. Aaron straightened a little. He wasn't just talking to scientists now. He was standing in front of power. Vesha moved closer, speaking softly. Do not fear. Aaron gave a small grin. Too late for that. She tilted her head. Your heart rate increased. I know, he said. That means I'm alive. The center of the hall glowed brighter. A tall figure with silver lines across its skin spoke, a voice heavy and sharp in Aaron's mind. Human, you are here for evaluation. You are not the first species we have studied. You are weak compared to others, and yet you survived longer than predicted. Aaron raised an eyebrow. Well, that's a nice welcome, the voice continued, ignoring his tone. Your species behaves with chaos. You fight when logic says you should fall. You laugh when fear should silence you. You build when destruction is easier. We do not understand this. Explain. Aaron looked at the floating council members. For a moment, he felt small. Just one man, far from Earth, surrounded by beings who saw him as a puzzle. But then he remembered every human who had ever faced something impossible and refused to back down. He took a deep breath. I can't explain all of humanity, he said, but I can explain me. The council chamber grew quiet. Even the hum of the machines seemed to pause. When I was a kid, Aaron said softly, I used to climb a broken tower near my home. Everyone told me not to. It was dangerous. It was falling apart, but I climbed anyway. Not because it made sense, but because something inside me wanted to see higher. He looked up at the floating figures. That's what humans do. We climb even when we're scared. We build even when we break. We don't always make sense, but we don't stop. The council members didn't move. Their glowing eyes studied him like a strange equation. One of them leaned slightly forward. And why? Why choose pain over silence? Aaron smiled faintly. Because silence means giving up. And giving up is something we don't do. Behind him, Vesha stood silently. She had heard his words before. But now, as he spoke them to the council, something in her shifted. It wasn't calculation. It wasn't curiosity. It was a spark. The council leader's voice echoed again. We can remove your fear. We can make you efficient, logical, perfect. Would that not be better? Aaron shook his head. No, that wouldn't make me human anymore. They were silent again. Vesha took a step forward, something none of the other scientists ever dared to do in front of the council. He is not like us, she said. But that does not make him broken. It makes him powerful. A ripple of silent communication passed between the council members. Aaron could feel the cold weight of their minds brushing against his own, like wind moving through trees. Power, the leader repeated. He is small, fragile. What power does he have? Vesha's voice was steady now. The power to move without knowing the end. The power to act without certainty. The power to hope. Aaron looked at her. For the first time since they met, she wasn't just a scientist. She was standing with him. The leader turned his gaze back to Aaron. Then show us. The floor beneath Aaron shifted. Suddenly, the room around him melted into a simulation. He was no longer in a silver hall. He stood on a floating platform above a dark, storming world. Thunder rolled across the black sky. Waves of energy crashed below. It wasn't real. But it felt real. Vesha stood on the platform's edge, her hands glowing as she controlled the environment. The council watched from above, silent judges. Aaron clenched his fists. What is this? A test, Vesha said softly. They want to see if your hope survives fear. The wind roared around them. A bridge of light extended from their platform to another far across the storm. The bridge flickered and shook. Cross, the leader's voice said. Survive or fall? Aaron laughed under his breath. Of course, he stepped forward. The first step was steady. The second was harder. Wind slammed against him like invisible hands. The bridge trembled. Lightning flashed in the distance, painting the dark sky in brief. Blinding light. Vesha followed at a distance, watching him carefully. She did not understand why a human would walk into danger like this, but she also didn't stop him. Halfway across the bridge, Aaron almost fell. His heart hammered in his chest. Cold sweat covered his palms. His legs shook not because he was weak, but because fear was real. He closed his eyes for a second. He remembered climbing that old tower as a child. He remembered his first mission into deep space. He remembered every human who had stepped into darkness, not because it was safe, but because it mattered. He took another step, then another, and another behind him. Vesha spoke softly. "Why keep moving?" "Because that's what we do," Aaron said between breaths. "We keep going." The wind screamed louder. The bridge cracked under his feet. For a second he slipped, but his hand caught the flickering edge. His legs dangled over the storm. Vesha's eyes widened. She could easily have lifted him with a thought, but she didn't. Not yet. She watched. Aaron gritted his teeth. His arms burned. His heart pounded. Every logical calculation said to let go. But he didn't. He pulled himself up, shaking but alive. And then he stood again. The council observed silently. No words, no movements. Just watching, step by step, Aaron crossed the last stretch of the bridge. When he reached the other side, his knees hit the ground. His chest rose and fell like a drum. He was exhausted. But he was smiling. Vesha appeared beside him in a soft shimmer of light. She looked down at him not like a scientist now, but like someone who had witnessed something she could not explain. "Your body is damaged," she whispered. "Yeah," he said, breathing heavily. "That's part of it. Could have waited. You could have asked for help, but you didn't." Aaron looked up at her, his face damp with sweat and storm mist. "Because if I wait every time, I'll never move." She stared at him for a long time. Then she turned toward the council. "Do you see?" The leader's voice returned, softer this time. "You act without logic. And yet, you survived." Aaron laughed weakly. "Yeah, welcome to humanity." The storm faded away. The simulation dissolved. They were back in the bright hall. Vesha stood beside him, not behind him. And that changed everything. The council was silent for a long moment. Then the leader finally spoke. "Your species is flawed, imperfect. But perhaps that imperfection is strength." Aaron raised an eyebrow. "Took you long enough." Vesha didn't speak. But something in her eyes glowed brighter a light that wasn't there before. The council's voice lowered. "We will release you. But understand this, human? You have changed nothing about us." Aaron stood up slowly. "I didn't come here to change you. I came here to survive." He turned toward Vesha. She was watching him, quiet and thoughtful. She walked closer, close enough for him to see the faint silver patterns under her skin. "You are leaving," she said softly. He nodded. "Yeah, back to my people." For a moment, her glowing eyes searched his face, like she wanted to ask 1,000 questions. But only one escaped her lips. "Why does it do that?" She whispered again, pressing a hand lightly near his heartbeat. Aaron smiled. "Because this feeling is what makes us human. It's why we dream. Why we fight. Why we don't stop." Vesha lowered her hands slowly. For the first time, a faint ripple moved across her lips, not quite a human smile.
"Oh."
But something close. The council opened a corridor of light. Beyond it waited a transport pod that would return him to the human ship. Aaron took one last look at the room where everything began, the cold table. The bright lights, the alien who saw him not as a lab rat, but as something more. "Goodbye, Vesha," he said softly. She tilted her head. "Goodbye." Aaron Vale. As he stepped through the corridor, the hum of the room faded behind him. He didn't know if their two species would ever truly understand each other. But he had left something behind, an idea. A spark. Something that logic alone could never create, far above the observation hall. The council watched Vesha touch her own chest, as if searching for something she had never noticed before. Her heartbeat was steady, but for the first time she felt it.